Welcome back to I Need a Coach, where we interview top coaches, experts, authors, and speakers. Hear their stories of success and business building practices. I'm your host, Adam Packard. For the last 7 years, we've done a lot of work with coaches, over 500 coaches, helping them generate leads and start conversations naturally. Today, you're going to be in for a treat. We've got Joe Marcoux, who is a master sales trainer, works exclusively with coaches. And this is a little bit of a longer show because we dive into some details in terms of overcoming objections and how to structure calls the right way, how to package your prices and how to handle the pricing objections. So dive into this episode, get a lot of nuggets from it, and I hope you enjoy. All right, welcome back to I Need a Coach, where we interview top coaches and experts. And I'm excited. I've got my good friend Joe Marcoux here from the S.O.S Dojo. Joe and I go way back. He'll kind of tell you the story, but he is a expert sales trainer, specifically working with coaches. And I'm excited to get some insights here and share some nuggets. So Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Adam, I am absolutely fired up to be here, man. It's an honor.
We've been looking forward to doing this for a while. So I know we finally got it on the books.
It's great. Yeah. It's so great. And like, I think back in terms of how we met so many years ago and where we are now in our careers and our paths. You know, it's like we connect and then, there's Adam again. It's just so neat how this has happened. I'm really happy for you, man. You're doing some good stuff.
We're doing some fun stuff. Yeah, we're having some fun. This is another way to add some value and meet some cool people. So, so let's go back. So let's kind of go back a little bit. How we met. You can share the story. We both were in a network marketing company together way back in the day. Yeah. But maybe tell your story of kind of how you went from there to how'd you start the S.O.S Dojo and what it is and who you help. Sure.
So way back when we first met, we were both involved in a network marketing company, and the company. I have no problem telling people what the company name is. It was Send Out Cards. And I was using the company way back then. This is over a decade ago. It's almost 2 decades now when I think of it. Like it's crazy. The service that I was using was to follow up with my customers. I've always been involved in sales and customer service and coaching. And so it just seemed logical that, let's do this. And then you and I met. And you were a top producer with that company, and things change and we move on and we start using other tools and life changes. And long and short of it, I was the guy who people would hire to go do live sales training. They would bring me in, companies would bring me in from all over the world. After I wrote a book back in 2007 called Boutique Thinking in a Big Box World. And again, this is internet, not as big as it is now. So I get asked to go and do live training, mostly in the health, fitness, wellness spaces, the health practitioner spaces and the like. And so let's fast forward all the way to 2020. It's the beginning of 2020. It's pre-pandemic, or it's the pandemic is just starting to hit. I am booked for 140 days of travel for the year 2020. And then I'm in Washington, D.C. I just had spoken at a conference in New York, and then I'm in D.C. doing a sales training for a small business. And then you got to go home because I'm from Canada, and we're shutting the border. So suddenly I got to go. I got to get on a plane right away, change my travel schedule and head back. Now, I will tell you this. The pandemic was the best thing that could have ever happened for me and for any one of my clients. Because as a sales coach, one of the challenges that I always consistently ran into is people needed refreshers. And going in live, everybody got a great amount of insight on the spot. I would leave and habits would creep back in and sales would drop. And so pandemic hits, right? And for the first couple of months, Joe's not traveling, Joe's not working, Joe's not creating revenue. Well, and I was an army of one. And like most coaches start off as an army of one. I have a program that's called How to Be an Army of One in Sales. Well, let me tell you, it's not sustainable and it's not scalable. It is certainly not something that you're going to be able to sell later. And this was one of my challenges. So I have several coaches. One of my business coaches, his name's Craig Ballantyne. People might know him. Well, Craig and I were having a conversation 6 weeks into the pandemic. And here's what happens. During the pandemic, the first couple of weeks, it's like, well, I'm not traveling. It's like, it's a mini holiday. At about a month in, things start to, go, this is going to be worrisome here because I'm not creating cash flow for the business, because I got paid handsomely, by the way. I got paid really well to go and travel and speak. Then at 6 weeks in, I'm not kidding, Adam, I'm drinking banana liqueur. Because who the hell drinks banana liqueur? Well, it's only when
my dad probably does.
Right. It's only when your liquor cabinet is now empty, because I haven't been working. And one of my rules is, well, I don't drink on a school night. Well, every night was a weekend because I wasn't traveling. I wasn't working. So honest to God, you guys, it's embarrassing to admit back then, because I barely drink now. I was drinking and I came down, I'm looking at banana liqueur, and I literally said to myself, I said, Adam, I was Joe, what the hell are you doing? I gave my coach Craig a call and I'm like, we've got to do something here, because I'm about to hit the panic button and I don't want to go on to the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. They called it the CERB. I'm like, I refuse to do this. So here's what ended up happening. Craig asked me some questions and we pulled out, what's the most popular portion of your program that you currently offer? I said, oh, that's easy. It's the S.O.S, Sales Objection System. That's the part that people, they run into objections all the time. It's the part that people have the most fun with. It's the part that people love to practice. He said, great, do a webinar. So I went and I dug into all my old emails that I could find. I'm talking my AOL account, which I still use, by the way. It's just funny. One of my many emails. Anyways, I got 44 people on a webinar, of which I had 3 people say yes to my offer. And the S.O.S, the Sales Objection System Dojo, which is a place to practice, and a safe place to practice under guidance, was born. And since then, this was May of 2020. Since then, now I've got 13 staff. I've had several black belts come and move on to other things within their lives and their business. And when you become a black belt, you become a teacher. You can then become a sales sensei. So what we do is we want to help people learn it, then do it, then teach it. Because when you get to teach something, that's when you develop true mastery. So that's how the S.O.S Dojo was born. And here we are
awesome.
today. Yeah, clients all over the world. It's a blast.
It is so funny when we reconnected and I was like, what's the name of your company? You're like S.O.S Dojo. And we have black belts. And I was like, well, I'm ninja prospecting. So I was like, there's got to be some synergy there.
Yeah, it's so neat. And we're actually expanding this now to it's becoming the Sales Dojo, because S.O.S is one of a few offers within the house, within the building, we'll call it, this virtual building that we call the dojo. So yeah, it's great.
So in your ideal clients are coaches?
My ideal clients are online coaches, people who want to help others, and really in the fitness space is really strong. Career coaches we're really strong with. Health practitioners we're really strong with. I mean, I've dealt with other people in coaches in general. The fitness, health, wellness space, that's where we shine.
Got it.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So let's kind of dive into some of this stuff. So you and I both work with a lot of people in the coaching space. We see the challenges. And one of the things that I've shared with you is most coaches that I talk to, and I talk to 5-10 a day. I'm sure you talk to lots of coaches all day long too. Mm-hmm. A lot of them think they have a lead problem. When in fact, I send them the leads, we generate the interest, and then 3 months later, they cancel our service because they're not able to convert the leads into clients. So yeah. And a lot of the coaches come from the corporate world, and then they put their coach hat on. And I shared the stat that, there was 2 million coaches before the pandemic. There's 6 million coaches after the pandemic, right? So everybody seems to be a coach. There's a ton of competition out there. Mm-hmm. So how does a coach kind of take that transition from, okay, I'm a new coach, I'm generating leads. Maybe they don't use a service. Maybe they're doing it on their own, warm market referrals, not doing any cold outreach. But what do you see as the biggest challenges with coaches that aren't converting leads to clients? Well,
first things first, I mean, the biggest challenge is going to be mindset. And this doesn't necessarily require a mindset coach. This is just a simple understanding of looking at your metrics and going, okay, what is a lead? Like really define what a lead is, because you could say, oh, I've got a full calendar of calls. Well, are they the right lead? Like, do you have the right kind of lead? So let's go into lead, set, show, close. Those are the 4 metrics that I want everybody to consider. So what's a lead? Then did you start conversations with them? And if you did you set an appointment with them? So it's leads, then set, right? My balloons are going off, right? Set, then show. Did they show up? Did they show up? And then did you close them? Because there's a difference between your conversion rate and your close rate, right? Your conversion rate is from lead to they buy in your, like some people call it a sales conversation. I want us all to rethink this because sales has changed, you guys. People are now more informed than ever, thanks to this medium, thanks to using devices like our phones. They come to you with a wealth of information. The fact is, all of the information is out there. So as a coach, it's your job to, yes, have a level of expertise, also to be able to be the best curator of that information, because that's the key. And then, are you listening? People are horrible listeners, and it's a skill. So people are waiting for their turn to speak, and that's not listening. And what questions are you asking? And are you following the cues that your guests, or your future customers, they're not clients or they're not customers until they pay you. So until such time, your future customers, or what I like to call them, your guests, we need to pay full attention, and they deserve our respect. Sales, in my mind, is something that is an honorable, it's an honest type of vocation. It truly is. And we're going through this shift because now, if you book a call with someone, it takes courage. Like, think of it. What is your prospect or your guest? How do they feel when they hop on a Zoom call with you or a phone call? You're not about to just give them stuff for literally nothing. I think we have this expectation that our hope is that we can show that we can help them and that they'll pay for our services. Well, then if they come to the call and let's say they say, Adam, I just want you to know, first things first, I'm not buying today. What is your emotional response to that after you've set up the call, after you've DM'd back and forth, after you've finally gone through the process, and then they get on the call with you and then they hit the brakes before you've even had an opportunity to have a conversation? People's emotions take off. And this is the problem. When emotions go up, intelligence goes down. Mm-hmm. And so we need to practice emotional management, listening. And it sounds so basic, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, so it's interesting you talk about leads versus booked appointments versus, how many show and how many convert, because I think if you ask 10 different people what they consider a lead, you get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
In my book, a lead is someone that has shown interest in what you do. They're not necessarily a booked appointment, right?
No.
A booked appointment is a totally different thing than a lead.
Right.
So what do you look for in terms of numbers? Like, I don't know if you have any averages in terms of,
I do.
Obviously it depends on where they come from. A lead that's a referral is probably going to end up on your calendar faster than a lead that came off of an ad or from a cold message.
Correct.
So what type of numbers are you looking for there for someone that is quote unquote successful? And
be clear in terms of what you want to know and what a lead is. Know your client, like who's your avatar? Who's your ideal client? Where are they? What's their name? Can you say, my ideal client her name is Shannon. She's a mother of 2. She's 38. She's a coach. She works at home. She's a fitness coach. She lives in Annapolis, Maryland. I mean, can I get the specifics? Because if you just say, well, I work with coaches, or I work with busy moms. Like, can you be more specific than that? Let's granulate it. So the numbers that I like to work with, it depends on, is it organic traffic or is it paid traffic? Because if you're working with paid traffic, everybody just take a deep breath, let your shoulders drop, sigh, it's okay. In other words, paid traffic, your metrics will be a little bit lower. You're paying for it. Organic traffic, you better have great metrics. So what I like to see for organic traffic, where people have, and again, a follower is not a lead. A follower might just, people can start following you. A lead is somebody who's like, hey, I'm raising my hand that I'm interested in what you do. So follower isn't necessarily a lead. And some people think they are, and I disagree. So I like to see from a lead somebody who might take your lead magnet or might go to a webinar or something that you're offering for free, and they're engaged with you, or they're reaching out to you, asking you questions. That is more of a lead. You need to reach them, or they're engaged in what you have to offer. That's a lead. Great. Well, at that point, let's say if you for every 10 leads, you should get 6 people to set an appointment. You should get 4 people showing up. And in our world, the number, what we want is for what's perfection is an 80% close rate. In other words, it's not perfect. So you should be getting 3 out of 4 closes. If you're not, you need work. So instead of being in that position where it's like, hey, I want to have a full calendar and work yourself to death and have the wrong leads show up and you're wasting your time, I would rather have people work less, have better quality leads and a better show rate, because these are the numbers that you can look at. Okay, what's my lead rate? Okay, what are my set rate? What's my show rate? What's my close rate? If you can look at those numbers, then you can actually remove emotion for a minute and just go, okay, logically, I can make a database decision. So if you get a lot of people that are no-shows, something's missing in your process, right?
Yeah.
If you have a lot of people that they're not even setting appointments, then reconsider that. Okay, what's missing? Are you putting too much resistance up front? Like, are people having to fill out a long questionnaire? Because if too many questions, the more questions you ask in your intake form, the more people are going to, nope, they're not going to do it. It's like, Adam, how often do you get asked to fill out a survey?
I don't book myself on too many people's
right
calendars,
but even randomly
usually it's
to fill out
questions.
A survey. Do you ever just fill out a survey? Hey, fill out this survey because you just flew on United Airlines. We'd love to. No.
Trash.
Like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's WIIFM, right? What's in it for me?
Yeah. Well, how do you take that though? Because part of the lead to show is, and you talk about qualified. What's too many questions to ask? How many questions do you need to ask in order to pre-qualify people? Because, one of the pre-qualifiers I have for the podcast is I'm looking for coaches that are making at least $100,000. So I have to ask that question. And
that's a fair question.
It's because that's part of the process is we're trying to teach people how to build a business. So,
yeah.
But how many questions is too many and how do you find that balance between, I guess, pre-qualifying and asking the right questions, but then you also want more appointments, but they might not be as qualified.
So if you're not getting enough appointments, then reduce the amount. This is as simple as it gets. Yeah. If you're not getting enough appointments, reduce the amount of questions to get people on the call.
Right.
Because then you can at least put in repetitions to practice.
Right.
The problem is that sometimes people don't understand that they're making these horrible mistakes because they're not practicing under guidance. They're just having what I call buying conversations or sales calls repeatedly. And unfortunately, they don't realize that they consistently fail. And then they don't audit their own calls, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to get a really pinpointed ideal client to show up, then you ask more questions and you create more resistance. So there are people that we know that they're like, hey, my biggest problem is I've got too many leads. Imagine that problem. I've got too many leads. Well, what they do is they start pinpointing more questions within their intake form. And they even will say, for example, I've got one guy who's in our program and he says, listen, his particular program is 5 figures. So, we're talking, it's 10,000 or more. Understanding that this is going to take an investment of this nature, would you want to proceed if this was the right fit? Well, if people answer no, or they leave it, he doesn't even have it, leave it blank anymore. If they answer no, it's pre-qualified for him. He doesn't take the call because he's busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's smart. I'm kind of getting to that point myself.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of appointments and sometimes it's like, it's good to be busy. And I think in the beginning, you do need that repetition and build that muscle. I had a client I was talking to earlier and she said, my offer wasn't really resonating. And I said, how many people did you present it to? And she said 3. And I said, 3? That's not a big enough sample size to say if something's working or not. Right. So
10's not even big enough.
No, I know. And this is what I taught, when we were in network marketing. People were like, what are you doing? How are you guys succeeding so much? I'm like, I'm just talking to more people, right? At the end of the day, I'm not any better than anybody. I just had more conversations and reach out to more people. But knowing those different numbers, and part of that is that tracking. And a lot of coaches don't do that.
No.
Where how many leads are you generating? How many turn to appointments? How many of those appointments show? How many of those appointments convert? And some will convert immediately, some over time. But if you know the numbers, then you can kind of work backwards and say, well, I'm getting a lot of leads, but they're not getting to my calendar. Well, something's going on there. We need to fix that issue. But unless you're tracking it, it's really hard to determine what needs to be fixed. You say 80% close rate. So let's dive into that for a second, because I think people would be shocked to hear 80% close rate. No, usually 80% would be for referrals. So talk about, how do you get to 80%? And is that with all different types of leads, whether it's warm, cold? And
if you're going to get, yeah, Adam, that's a fair question. At black belt level, once you get some, at least in our world, the black belts that we deal with, regardless of price, by the way, we have a couple of people that have been in our program where their offer is $100,000. Imagine where it's like, okay, you want to join our program? It's $100K. And we've helped these coaches, they're in the real estate space, so they're doing real estate investing. And to become a member of that mastermind, it's $100,000. So that's a huge investment. You've got to have a level of confidence. Mm-hmm. And when this woman who was a former black belt of ours and used to be a teacher of ours as well, and now she's a full-time salesperson for this particular brand they're called Limitless in the real estate space for doctors, and they're helping people do real estate and understand that $100,000 takes a lot of courage to be able to get to this point. This particular Amber used to be selling gym memberships at a Globo gym for $40 a month. So it's quite the shift. And so you can imagine that there's a process to be able to develop that level of courage, that level of confidence, and to be able to be a confident communicator. And I can't reiterate this enough, to be a fantastic listener. So to get to 80% close rate, what does it mean? It means you're in a place where you understand the basics of a template, what the buying conversation should look like. And because someone like Amber developed the skill of being an incredible listener, to be able to understand and figure out what their problems are, because people have problems, and then under the problem is desire. There are two things that we need to be able to uncover to be able to have sales happen. We need desire and we need urgency. Once you've been able to do a great job of uncovering somebody's absolute deepest desire, and that takes a lot of questions, and more so a better understanding. Like, what do people want? They want to be heard. They want to be understood, right? They want to be understood. The problem is people want to sell, pitch. There's going to be times, Adam, where, you know what? The best move you could make is tell people, we're not the right fit. I'm going to refer you to the right person. That's coming from a place of honor. That's a place of respect. And that's the question that I'm going to ask you, the listener, as a coach. Are you prepared to do that? Because if all you're doing is smelling the dollar signs, people will see that from you. They'll be able to pick it up. As opposed to if you go in where I want to help these people and I want to make sure that we're in alignment, because if there's no alignment, there's no sale. So I want to make sure I'm aligned with you. I can build rapport. And then once we've developed the relationship where they got to know you, okay, I like this guy or I like this girl. She's really nice. I really like her. Then, I can trust this person because what did you do? You listened. You paid attention. And based on cues, not only verbal, but also body language cues, then, okay, you were able to show what you learned. And I'm a big believer in taking notes. So take your notes and then, okay, based on what you've said, this is what we've come up with. And then you can transition when you've earned the right to pitch. People make a mistake. So we have a blueprint that we give people, and the blueprint is simple. The key here is don't be a robot, and it takes practice. Mm-hmm. So yeah, an 80% close rate is more than possible, regardless of your price. Here's the thing, Adam. If somebody's at 100% close rate, then I can promise you're priced too low. You shouldn't be closing 100% of the people 100% of the time. Right. No way.
Let me ask you this. So I've had some coaches come to me and say, it's better to have your first call, sales call, first meeting with someone, not using Zoom, just verbally. What's your take on having the first call just be a call versus using Zoom?
I would disagree. I think that the importance of the technology that we have in our midst is going to be to your advantage. if I can look at you as I'm looking at you on the screen right now, there are verbal cues and that we can give, but there's also the body language cues. There's science that backs this up. Albert Mehrabian back in 1972 did one of the first studies at UCLA on the way that humans communicate. And since then, this has been reiterated over and over. 55% of the way we communicate is body language. 55%. 38% of the way we communicate is tone of voice. 7% is words. So you look at the written word and you look at the power of copywriting, having a good hook. Yeah, that's all fine and good. When the rubber meets the road, it's going to be a live interaction where you can press the flesh with someone, because making physical contact is without question. This is why live events change lives. There's a reason for it. In today's world, especially post-pandemic, and you shared numbers from 2 million coaches pre to 6 million coaches post-pandemic, Zoom and video meeting has now become the norm. And so I'm going to encourage practicing and doing video, even if it's that first call, and just have the basics. Because now, as I'm paying attention, I'll give you an example. If you were to start, you and I are having a dialogue, and I'm doing this with my notepad as you're speaking to me, what does that do?
Makes me feel that you're listening and paying attention and wanting to make sure you remember what we talk about.
Right. If my camera was off, can you see me taking notes?
No.
Right. And so just that, remember, people don't care about how much you know until they know about how much you care. And so if I, through my actions, which you can see, and that's right, the body language cues of attentive listening, nodding, and then I can also question I can disagree with you in a buying conversation. You can disagree with who you're speaking with and still come to the agreement of, I can help you. Mm-hmm. So this whole idea that you have to get people to say yes and you got to get them onto the yes train, that's a bunch of crap. Mm-hmm. I mean, what we need to do is we need to make sure that they feel comfortable and that we're in alignment. Yeah. And then as such, I like to take notes. Some people go, I'd rather type my notes down on my laptop. Well, feel free to do that. Word of caution, just tell your guest, tell your prospect, tell your guest, hey, I'm typing on my laptop right now. So if you hear the clicking noise, I'm not checking stocks or Facebook. I'm writing notes based on what we're talking about. Right. Because otherwise, people, and I'm going to call this out. I was on a coaching call with Craig actually, and he was clicking, and I honestly thought he wasn't paying attention. And I called him out on it. He goes, "No, I'm taking notes, Joe." I'm like, "Well, you should have told me."
Yeah.
So yeah, clarity is key.
So let me ask you this. So let's go back to some numbers in terms of, okay, people are, appointments, you have your chance, you're in front of them.
Yeah.
What do you think about one call close, two call close? Are you trying to close them on that first call? Does that depend on your offer and your price point, or does it depend on how the initial call starts and the rapport? How do you kind of determine when to ask for the sale?
Yeah, I love this question. And the answer is, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on how much time you're going to give yourself.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see coaches do repeatedly is they speak too fast and they're talking over their guests. You're better off having slightly longer calls. Give yourself a buffer on each end. So you want to get more calls. I'm going to give you guys a little hint. You want to get more calls, book your call times for a shorter period. Right? If I gave you the option, Adam, to book a call with me, it's a 60-minute call, or book a call with me, it's a 10-minute call. Which one are you likely going to book based on your schedule?
10.
Right. So you could book the 10-minute call and then preface it at the beginning of the call. Because now, again, if you create enough of the appropriate resistance at the beginning of that call, 10, 15-minute call, whatever, you can say, hey, Adam, towards the end of the call, if we're finding that this is going really well, I just want you to know, I've actually got an extra 15 minutes. And so what this does is you start it with, I've booked 15 minutes post my original 15-minute call. Depending on the cost of your offer, the higher price point of your offer, generally the longer your discovery is going to have to take. So typically a 30 to 45 minute discovery is what's required on average Now, that doesn't mean a 1-call close doesn't work or a 2-call close doesn't work either. Depending on the size of your organization, I know some people, what they do is they do a 15-minute discovery process call, and it's done by someone else. They get to a point where they have a team. So if you're going, for example, in the DM and it's like, yeah, this is not the appropriate person, or the intake form says wrong, well, then you just let them know you're not going to be the right fit. Okay. Once you have the call, you want to make sure you're in alignment. If they're in alignment, then you move on to the next call. There's a couple of examples that I want to give. Again, I want to give good advice to people because I know this works, because we do this in our business. So when I have people who are curious about the dojo, I like to give people the opportunity. I sometimes, depending on what offer they're looking at, it's a 15-minute call, and then we'll book a second call. And before the second call, we do what's called a microwave. And what I mean by microwave is we want to keep the person warm. The second call is 24, no more than 48 hours later. And in between, we send them an email filled with social proof, testimonials, and maybe a little piece of homework so that we keep them warm, and then we hop on the next call. And then it's purely a recap. We, for our program, have typically done a 1-call close. However, I also offer people the opportunity to come in for a free session, and it's not a sales call at all. It's just, come and experience it. If what you experience is something that you're curious about, then we can have a discussion to see if you're the right fit.
Right.
So I think that the answer to your question is, you better make sure you give yourself enough time, because the other problem, because we audit people's calls, like I will listen and watch people's call recordings. They'll look at the time and they'll go, oh crap, I'm running out of time. And then they start talking over their guest and they jump into the pitch. And I've been guilty of this, you guys. I mean, so take my advice here, because I've learned it even recently. I had a referral come in. She was literally a referral from somebody who I highly respect as a leadership coach. And this other person came in, and the way that the email was presented, hey, meet Joe Marcoux. The email was written so eloquently. I mean, it's literally a beautiful piece of copywriting. And I just literally thought, this is a laydown. This is great. And I pitched way too soon. This is literally within the last year. So even me, right? People go, well, Joe, you're a sales sensei. I make mistakes, and I learned from it. And the lesson is, Joe, shut up and stick with your plan. Just because I think it's a laydown, stick with the plan and really understand, what is this person's desire? Like, what are the problems? I want to find out 3 things. I want to get 3 things from them, like 3 pieces of problem or desire. So once I know these 3, and I can create 3 SMART goals. Like if you're a coach, SMART goals are so important. Something that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. You get SMART goals, well, then now I can put these 3, the magic of 3 together and go, based on what you've told me, here's what I know. This is important to you. This is important to you. And above all, this is really important to you. And we want to be able to get this done by now or by this time. So on a scale of 1 to 10, then we can temperature check.
Yeah. Do you do that, the scale of 1 to 10 on every call?
I do. And here's the thing. You've got to earn the right to get there. So you've got to be careful, because if you do it too soon, see, the scale of 1 to 10 takes people from the emotional brain to the logical brain.
Right.
So we need to make, even the most analytical person is going to make a emotional decision. So you just simply say, so based on the numbers, how do you feel?
Yeah.
And I like to say, before I preface it, I can say, how urgent and important is it for you to be able to solve these problems on a scale of 1 to 10? I want a temperature check there before I pitch. And then when I've pitched, before I've even gone over what my program is, specifics in terms of the pricing, as I go over the problems that I've discovered, then I want to be able to get to a point where I can say, so Adam, how confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10? How confident are you that when we work together, we're going to be able to get you the results that you're looking for? So now it's a question of confidence. What's the level? And if I don't get 10, then I want to find out. So if you're at the classic numbers are 7, 8, or 9. So it's like, okay, so you're an 8. So what is missing for us to be able to make that a 10? And then we can find out.
Yeah. Do you tell them it's a sales technique? Because I used to do that, where I would say, listen, I know this is, a technique, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling about what we've talked about so far?
I don't make it a sales technique, because I am honestly curious.
Yeah.
and it's so ingrained that it becomes the habit. The thing is that sometimes I often get people tell me it's an 11, Joe. Yeah. That's a red flag for me. Because now, like, I want to make sure that we have it's a 1 million. It's like, okay, what makes it an 11? What makes it a million or infinity? It's like, if the expectation is set too high, hang on a second.
Right.
Because that can happen. Right. Yeah. You might have people saying, oh, you're going to do all these leads for me, Adam. Like, I expect to have 100 leads on my calendar tomorrow.
Right.
We're starting at 4:00. Wait a second.
So let me ask you this. So I get messages from people, and I know my clients do as well, and probably a lot of coaches that are listening to this do as well. When someone messages you back, they're interested, and their first question is, what's your cost? Before you even have a conversation, if you get that in a message, what's your belief? Or how do you, because I know you have this on your calendar if you're pre-qualifying, but that's only at the point where you have a lot of appointments on your calendar and you're trying to either charge more or get a few more of the right people. But when you get that question, how do you come back to
this? Is an S.O.S example, because it's kind of like a pre-qualified objection, right? They're only going to work with you if the price is right. Now, hang on a second. So the first thing that we got to do in handling any objection, you guys, is we acknowledge and we ask a question. It's 2 steps. Just acknowledge the person that you're speaking with, then ask them a question. And again, the question needs to be poignant. And then there's a way to be able to frame the question. And then there's a way to be able to listen to the answer to the question. So even though that the blueprint of handling an objection sounds easy, the skill set requires practice and repetition under guidance. That being said, somebody says, hey, how much? It could be earlier on in the call. It could be in the DM. Well, the answer to that is, and it's like, hey, I really appreciate you asking that question because you want to make an informed decision. And the truth is, it depends. It depends on how long you want to work with me. It also depends on which specifics in terms of the program that you want. And it also depends as to whether or not we're in alignment. So what I'd like to do is set up a time where we can have a conversation so we can make sure that we're in alignment first. Fair enough? So what I've done is I preface it, because that's the truth. For you as a coach, for anybody who's a coach, if you only have one offer, that's okay. The question is it strictly, I do this, it's this one price and that's it? Because that is a harder sell. If your offer was, you can work with you for 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, you've already got an opportunity. It's called the option close. Like, and I find fitness coaches have these unrealistic expectations, for example, where they're going to help people lose all this weight in 60 to 90 days. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. It doesn't help people, number one, from a perspective of health, because they're just going to most people just gain it back. We all know this. So don't you want to be able to have customers for a longer engagement? Number two. And don't you want to be able to ensure that they actually maintain the results? Then engage them longer. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, I have a year program. And what we do is we suggest that you do what's called price anchoring. And it is a strategy. It comes from the heart. It's not a question of, this is a tactic where I'm going to take advantage of you. No. If somebody works with you for a year, you could guarantee that they're going to be in the best shape of their life. It can give them enough time to be able to sustainably get to whatever type of coaching that you offer, whether it's make an emotional change, have the transformation that they're looking for, whether it's life coaching, fitness coaching. A year is, they're not in a rush, and they can develop habits. 6 months, it's going to, on the monthly rate, is going to cost a little bit more, right? The year rate is the best option. Then you have 6 months, then you have 3 months. Well, guess what? You can go over your process and say, so Adam, I've got 3 options. I've got the 1 year, 6 months, or 3 months. The year is the best option. However, I've got 3 different pricing options for you. Which one's going to work best for you? I didn't ask you, do you want to get in the program? I'm going to lay it all out, and then I'm going to ask you which one is best for you. So by having the best, better, good options, you guys, it's going to give you the opportunity to softly ask for the sale, because people are afraid to ask. So I encourage the option. Which option is best for you? Or if you have a very popular thing for a lot of our members is they have a platinum, gold, and silver option. And there's more access in the platinum version. And then in the gold version, it's a little bit less access than what you get in the platinum. And we can show you depending on what you want to focus on. Like, what do you really want to sell? It's like popcorn at the movies. If you got the small for $3, you got the medium for $4.50, you got the large for $5. Well, for an extra 50 cents, I might as well just go for the large. Now, if you want to sell more medium, then you go, well, the small's $3, the large is $4, or the small is $3, the medium's $4, and the large is $7. Well, I'll just go with the medium.
Right.
Like you put the large at a point where it's just, so you can adjust pricing based on what you want to offer.
How about this? So let's say my offer, and let's say I have multiple offers.
Yep.
Let's say it's $7,000 for a 6-month program. And I have some coaches that have asked me this. Okay, $7,000 is the price, and that can be financed, right? That's the,
of course
that,
you can.
That allows you to, kind of spread it out a little bit. So that's an option. Or if you pay in full, it's $6,000. Or if you decide today, it's $5,000. What's your take on doing a structure like that?
So this is interesting. I love this question. Let me ask you, Adam, full transparency. If I was on the buying conversation call with you, and you had a program where, because I believe that if it's paid in full, you should get a discount for paid in full versus doing it monthly. There's a benefit for paid in full. Absolutely. If you want to create a fast action discount, just understand that is false urgency. And here's what I mean by that.
It comes off as a little desperate to me too. That's just my take.
So false urgency goes like this. It's, Adam, I know that if tomorrow you and I have this conversation, that deal that you're suggesting here of if I do it now for an extra $1,000, if we talk tomorrow, that deal's still going to be on the table, right?
Right.
So it's like, listen, if you have a promotion where you're emailing people and you're saying, like, for example, I have a Valentine's Day promotion. I kid you not. If you were on my email list, they're the only people that are going to get this, number one. So if you don't get it on Valentine's Day, sorry, like they're getting a special, those people get a special deal, and it's only going to be good for the date that I put, and that's it. And so you've got to be able to have that conviction of it ain't happening, because if you're flexible, people will know, and then there's like, well, I got the deal later. You can't. You've got to be able to stick to your guns. And unfortunately, most coaches that I've coached, they don't at the beginning. They don't. They're flexible, and it comes across, like you said, it comes across as salesy. It's pitchy, and people see through that kind of garbage. So I don't recommend it.
Yeah, and then another one too, and I'm guilty of this too, where I tell someone the price, and they're like, "Well, could you do it for this?"
Oh,
and you're at the point where, God, I really want this client, but it never works out.
Never works out. There's two things to come out of this, Adam, and there's an S.O.S. story for this. So is that your best price? Does this ever go on sale? Do you ever run a promotion? You could say, yes, I've run a promotion, and you could say, these are the caveats to that. It's when I go speak at a live engagement, or you need to be a part of my email list. If you're on my list, then you'll get those or you could be a part of my Facebook group. Those people that are part of those communities get access to better promotions. That's fair. Yeah. Okay. So you can have, these are the rules behind those deals. The fact of the matter is, though, people run into what's called a sympathy trap. And I'll tell you what, as a coach and as coaches, we all have big hearts. Like, I want to help people, man. Like, I really, really want to help people. And I've been in a position where I wasn't making like crap, man. I wasn't even making $5,000 a month. So I mean, it's hard to. I remember, like, pre-pandemic, it took me a while, right? It took me. Yes, I've made a lot of money in my career, and I'm very blessed. It's work, you guys. You've got to do the work. If I could go back to my young teenage self, I would tell my young teenage self, get a coach way sooner. It would have been the smartest move I would have made. That being said, don't fall into the sympathy trap.
Yeah.
We all have big hearts. We all want to help people.
Yeah.
And when somebody says, oh, my daughter was just in a car accident and our hospital bills, like, she's okay, but the hospital bills are piling up, and I really wanted to get started with you, and I don't think I'm just going to have enough money to put together. Like, listen, I tell Adam, you're a great guy. and you deal with great people. And I've you and I have referred each other people back and forth, and these people are big-hearted people. There's a time where if you discount, I can promise you it will come back and bite you in the ass. It just will.
Yeah. No, 100%. I needed to add a buffer to this podcast so we could go longer. Unfortunately, you're not my last of the day.
All right.
But I would love to. I think we could talk about so many other things. I think
bring me back, bro. I'm happy to give. I'm happy to give. Yeah.
This has been awesome. I think we never know which way the conversation is going to go, but a lot of the stuff is things that I've seen myself do. I've seen other coaches do. It's the questions I get asked on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And it's just been gold hearing your perspective on this. So would love, obviously, to have you come back on, and maybe we can dive into some objections or maybe framework and kind of how to structure a sales call the right way.
Because the answer behind this is that if you think of what Malcolm Gladwell, the author of the book Blink, you need 10,000 hours to get to mastery. And what do we do as coaches? We time collapse. And that's exactly what you and I are doing in this conversation. And it's what you do with your lead generation for people. It's what we do. So when you do get the leads, we help you time collapse the process of your expertise as a salesperson. Like it or not, the privilege of that you have as a coach, that's what it is. It's a privilege to coach people. Without the skill of sales, you don't get to do what you love to do.
Yep, 100%. All right, so where can people find out more about you and S.O.S Dojo? And I know you got a free resource for people that we'll put below here too.
Yeah, so Adam's going to have a link to the Sales Objection Mastery Handbook. It's a guide. It's a guidebook. It's literally a kid could read this, and it's color coded, so you'll be able to see the objection, how to acknowledge it, and then what question to ask. It's the 7% of what the challenges of handling objections. I'm giving it to you absolutely free. Okay, that's option one. Option two is you can email, and you can email me directly, joe@sosdojo.com. And you can go to the website, sosdojo.com. And you can email me, say, yes, Joe, I'm in, or I'm in for a free session, just to come in and experience it. And Adam, you've been involved in the dojo, so you get it. You can come in and literally practice under guidance, practice in a safe place to make mistakes, practice handling objections, practice overcoming objections, and practice closing sales.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I've been a part of it. It's that hands-on learning and doing it, right? It's like you can read a book, but like you said, if you can really understand it and teach it, then you've mastered it. So
that's it. And that's what we want for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Joe, awesome to have you on, man.
Thanks, Adam. We're gonna do it again. It's an honor.
Enjoy your time in Mexico, and we'll chat again soon.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you for joining us on this episode of I Need a Coach. If you've made it this far, I genuinely appreciate your dedication. Putting this podcast together takes a lot of time and energy. In return, we only ask one thing, which is if you could please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps our show get in front of more people so we can help more people. This is Adam Packard signing off. Keep coaching, keep thriving, and see you in the next episode.